Hello again. It is Crew Call here on Motor Racing Network, presented by Flow Racing, the new home of NASCAR roots. You can subscribe at www.flowracing.com. We are so glad you joined us. Steve Post, pit reporter for the Motor Racing Network, joined as I am each and every week here by Todd Gordon, 25-time winning crew chief and a championship winning crew chief in the Cup Series. Hello, Todd. How are you?
Great.
Good. Good hanging out with you. We appreciate. We loved having you part of the Motor Racing Network broadcast crew. And boy, we had a lot to break down when it comes to Kansas. We had our crew chief analyst was busy out there.
Yeah, it was a great event, and one that had a lot of things going on. You know, we talked about the issues on pit road. It really seemed like the 45 car was the only guy in the top 20 that didn't have a pit road issue to have to overcome. We had teams being aggressive with tires and finding the limits there. We had great racing, cars that could run up on a wall, and some guys like the 45 and the 19 came up as well to me as I watched the race, really able to maneuver around the racetrack and run different lines and find speed. And another pass for the lead within 10 laps to go. That's like 12 of them this year or something like that.
Yeah, it's insane how good the racing is at the end, and what a race. Kurt pulled off there, getting by Kyle and then getting by Kyle. Besting both of the Kyles, his brother and Kyle Larson there. The 2311 team, I think if you're 2311, and honestly, from Denny to Steve Lauletta, they've just been brutally honest about this thing. I think if you're that team, you're like, man, we have got the performance of these cars really, really good. We saw one team clean everything up, and we saw one team not clean everything up, and that's the difference between first and 10th. But these cars are that good.
Yeah, definitely. You look at it, and Bubba had to go to the back with a penalty with 70 laps to go and drove back to 10th. That was quite an accomplishment for them. A lot of speed in both those cars. A lot of speed in the Toyotas overall. Yeah. We talked earlier in the season about what was going on with the Toyotas, and I at that point my conversation was, let's see what happens when we get to the Coke 600, and they're a couple weeks ahead, but they're back in full force.
Yeah, I think we saw, where was it? Was it Las Vegas where Kyle just about won the race in a late caution? So It's funny. It's funny how that goes. You can have good performance, but getting wins means so much more. Had Kyle gotten that win, maybe then we wouldn't have had those. I think they're all right, and I think that showed at Kansas they're all right as well.
Yeah, it did. I mean, the Gibbs camp finished third, fourth, fifth, sixth.
Yeah, very good.
Cars. So. What a weekend for them. A great weekend of racing. You had comers and goers all day long. Just a phenomenal. I love Kansas. I think that progressive banking from 17 to 20, that's right in the pocket of where these cars like to race. We've got two racetracks that way, Kansas and Homestead. Probably my two favorite racetracks. So
really, yeah.
Yeah, because you can move around the racetrack. You can find places to go. You got guys up on the wall, but you've got guys that they can work down the racetrack, and saw that Saturday. I actually was pretty high on Kurt Busch on Saturday
because he had that maneuverability.
He had the ability to make pace when he wasn't stuck on the wall.
Yeah, and you had talked about that last week here on the program. We talked about the car that could run a groove or two off might be the car to watch, and that's certainly what Kurt had, and he acknowledged that in Victory Lane. Talked about not only dirtying up the air in the cars behind him, but being able to go where they were not, and that is very, very key. About a month ago, we had Brian Patty from JTG Doherty Racing on this show, and it was a beat up, beat down, wore out, sick of it all Brian Patty. My, how times have changed at JTG Doherty Racing. 3 straight top 10 finishes, and it's not a 3-tire, half a can of fuel, wing and a prayer.
No.
Their performance has really, really been good. It's good to see that single car team up there in the top 10 the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, I think we alleviated some of the stress he had built inside with that whole interview, because right after that he went on his tear. So, yeah, great to see that, and really, like you said, a second, 8th, and 8th the last 3 races. 3 in a row. It's first time that Ricky's done that since 17. It's been good, and to your point, it's not been the working the off strategy piece to get that track position. It's been just having speed. They drove their way through the field from actually having an issue in practice.
Right?
Didn't get to qualify. Started scratching the field. I think they were last car, or close to it, and drove their way up into the top 10. I noticed that by the end of stage 2, they were in a good position, and they had pace to keep there, and they did a good job all day long. And that's, Ricky was on the radio talking about it. And, you just talked about the bounce and the step of the people at the shop and just what it does having these runs to the momentum going forward. And a great transition. Be interesting to see what they do coming forward in the All-Star Open and on into Charlotte.
Charlotte, no doubt. Yeah, I've shared on here and before. We travel, we fly on the same plane with them, and it's a different plane getting on now. I mean, it really is. There's a skip in the step of those guys, and that Sunday night is like, okay, what time were you? You know, one of Brian's points is we worked our guts out all Sunday night, and here we are back at the shop on Monday morning. Now on the plane, it's like, what time are we going in tomorrow?
Yep.
It's a whole different world. It's fun to watch. It really is. Really, really neat stuff. What we're going to do here this week on Crew Call is we've had a great time talking to so many of our crew chief buddies. And we'll get right back to that next week again. But we are kind of at a breaking point of the season. I think we're halfway through the regular season. We have the All-Star race coming up. So Brad Moran is the managing director of the Cup Series. Really, really good guy. I love talking to him. He's Canadian, so he's got that Canadian accent, and look forward to chatting with him. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk to Brad Moran here on the program. So we'll do that in just a moment. We'd like to invite you to subscribe to Flow Racing, the new home of NASCAR roots. Not only weekly racing, but the Arca Menard Series, the Whelen Modified Tour, Pinty Series, and all kinds of great racing as well. This weekend, the headliner on Sunday is the Pinty Series at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. Brad Moran, our guest, was the series director for the Pinty Series for 4 years. And we have got a bevy of racing on the weekly series. I think I counted 13 tracks. Otterdome, Granby, La Crosse, Berlin, Jennerstown, Riverhead, Lee, Hickory, Langley, South Boston, Florence, Bowman Gray, Meridian, Evergreen. I know, I went through that list quick. What that means is that you need to subscribe to Flow because you can scroll through, and if you time it right, you can catch a feature at Hickory and then a feature at Florence. And I love the pay-per-view platforms. And we do our sprint car stuff, so we have another one with Dirt Vision as well, and I go back and forth between them. But Flow Racing is the new home of NASCAR roots, and they just do a great job. So fun stuff. So let's do that. Let's step away, and when we come back, Brad Moran from NASCAR. He joins us next. Welcome back. It is Crew Call presented by Flow Racing, the new home of NASCAR roots. We talked a little bit about this when we were headed to break. Joining us is the managing director for the NASCAR Cup Series. Brad Moran joins us. Hello, Brad. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Good morning, guys. Good to be here.
Well, it's great to catch up with you. We see you in the pits and say hey every once in a while. You're a busy man, so we appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedule. Brad, you were named the managing director of the Cup Series in January of a year when a new car was being debuted. Do they not like you over there? I mean, man, they threw you into the fire. How are you doing? How is it going?
I think there could be a little bit of punishment there, possibly. Yeah. No, it's great. You know, the challenge. I was up for the challenge. You know, really exciting time for NASCAR. All the work and effort that John Probst and the R&D Center put into this next gen car. I just took it as a great opportunity and knew there'd be a bunch of challenges along the way, which we certainly have. But boy, the product's been good. You know, everyone's working together, and the collaboration between the teams and the drivers and you know, NASCAR has been something probably never seen before. So it's a great time to be here and just loving every minute of it. And you know, again, we just we keep digging, trying to put on good shows for all our fans each and every week.
Yeah, you talk about this new opportunity that came to you. Give us a little background of your racing history. It goes back to Canada and track ownership, I believe.
Yeah, obviously did some racing as a kid in the motocross and the motorcycles, and got into the stock cars and so on. And then it ended up, you know, kind of semi-retiring, so I thought, and purchased a Speedway and got into building that nice little third of a mile. Brought NASCAR to that track multiple times back in the day, and that was a great time. Did some spotting for some Hall of Famers, Gibbons and Dave Whitlock, some other well-known names in the Canadian racing ranks, and opportunity come to run the Canadian Tire Series. So we got involved in that series, and I managed that series for for I think about 5 years or so, and then transferred to the international at NASCAR and kind of overseeing everything under trucks from a competition side, and then moved to trucks about 5 years ago. So I pretty much been in a lot of different departments throughout the company.
Brad, did you always target, you talked about retiring and building up a little racetrack there. Did you think motorsports was going to be your journey, or did you have other things that you thought you might chase around as far as a career goes?
No, I was a photographer by trade, owned a couple of printing companies, and again, always had my hand in racing, but was never able to focus on it full time. And when I purchased the track, it was kind of like, that's what I was going to do. And of course, I thought I would do it like kind of 50%, but I'm not too good at doing that. So we got busy and we rebuilt the track and did changes every year and just kept building it, which I really enjoyed doing. And then I realized I wasn't very good at math, because at the rate I was spending to what I made it, the math wasn't there. So I had to go, I had to make sure I worked for a little longer, and this opportunity come along, and it's been great ever since. So cool. I'm back working wide open.
I understand that financial piece of trying to the outgoing and incoming balance. I'm going through that right now. So great point for you there.
Easy to spend it when you have time.
Yes, it is. It used to be the off season we spent money, and then race season you saved it because you didn't have any time to do it. But now it's for me, it's all season, which is something to work through. You talked about it. You came out of the Truck Series garage and ran a pretty tight ship over there. What surprised you most in the transition from the truck garage to the Cup garage?
Really not too much. I mean, it's, I guess the amount of people. There's obviously a lot more departments involved, a lot more things going on. The teams are definitely really detailed. Not that the truck guys aren't. A lot of the truck guys come from the Cup Series, but the Cup Series is at a higher level, and every detail is critiqued from the team. So, pretty bunch of sharp people working in the Cup Series, and that's what we love. And as well, the Truck Series had a lot of that, but it's at a higher level. There's no doubt. Just everything's a little more pressure, gets critiqued a little bit more, and and I think it wasn't a surprise, but that would be the biggest probably change.
Are there people within NASCAR that you've been able to lean on, that you as you were making this decision, knowing that you're not jumped in there alone? You've got a pretty good group of people around you as well.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I mean, we got a great group. I mean, all the R&D folks with the car are very helpful, and we know we're going to develop this thing as we go, and we're going to make changes here over the next couple of years. And I think we all knew that we would end up doing that. Scott Miller is obviously right there with me every step of the way. So me and him are almost like a partner. Basically we kind of make sure things stay on track. So a lot of good people around. Carl Goodman from the technical side, and just good folks all around me, and it certainly makes it easier. You wouldn't want to be sitting in this seat with no support. I can pretty much assure you that.
I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely that. You look at the project that you've taken on, and NASCAR has taken on, and developing a new car that's very supplier driven, and rolling that out to everything. I think you guys have done a phenomenal job with the implementation of how this has gone, how the product on the racetrack's gone. And it's been overwhelming success in a lot of ways. We at the start started to hear things about supply chain issues, which you hear across the world with coming out of the pandemic, and we're not hearing that anymore. How is that coming to the racing, and how do you guys see that going forward?
Yeah, we've got a lot of different groups working on different things, and obviously the part supply we started off, in Daytona. We were tight with parts and cars, as everybody's reported. Teams, again, just their level of professionalism and how to adjust, realized that they had to adjust because the cars weren't coming in probably quite as planned to start the season. They made adjustments. We made adjustments. It's definitely gotten better. and we'll continue to get better at it. But we're in a way better spot than we were when we started the season. Probably would have anticipated not tearing up quite as much equipment, but this is what we've been. I mean, these boys are at it. This racing's been sensational. These bodies have more give to them. I mean, I've had to work with these flange fit bodies for decades now, and they're tough. So it changes the racing a little bit. You know, a little rub here or a little tap there doesn't ruin your day. And, you know, obviously that plays into what these fans are seeing, which is just outstanding racing, I think, in most of the show. So we probably used up more than we anticipated as well to get the season going to this point. But we are getting the parts are coming. Again, everyone's getting in a better place. Talking to the teams, you know, I talk to them obviously every week and see how they're doing. And even the ones that have had more bad luck than good are feeling much better about it now than they were a couple months ago. So, you know, we are touch wood because we are coming out of a pandemic and raw materials and all those concerns are definitely there. But we have groups that are staying ahead of that and hopefully keep us in a good place.
I want to talk a little bit about the overall performance of the car. One of the things, NASCAR's charged with making a level playing field for everybody that comes to play. When I look at this season and when I look at teams like Trackhouse Racing, I look at some of the rungs Colleague Racing is at. Todd and I just talked about JTG Darty coming with 3 straight top 10 finishes. I know you guys don't root for specifics. I know you guys root for it, but it sounds to me and it seems to me like that leveling the playing field has been, it's a lot closer now than it was before when we see some of these smaller teams, Brad, rolling up at the front of the field on a regular basis. How do you assess that?
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see, you know, teams that obviously have a lot of talent that come into the sport just a couple of years ago, put good people in place. They have the same equipment as anybody that's starting the race, and you can certainly see it's paying off. We've had, I think we're 10 or 11 different winners, including the Coliseum. It's incredible, and you know, Trackhouse winning, and it's just spread around, and it's pretty awesome to see. I mean, I wouldn't doubt if we get to the 16 winners, you know, before the playoffs. So all of a sudden, is your one win a guarantee in? I don't know about that this year.
Yeah. I touched on that one this week on my Monday night program that I can put together a path to get 16 or 17 winners. I don't know if it'll happen, but I could make the argument for it at this point. And that's something that I think you would have stretched in prior years to do. So kudos to you guys with that one. There's been some talk about short track racing performance lacking with this car. I'm going to say on here, I don't agree with that statement because I think that the Phoenix race was good. I thought the Richmond race was really good if you understood what was going on with the strategy pieces. Martinsville was probably the one question to it. What's your take on the Martinsville piece and what has NASCAR looked at? Because I know there's been some discussion about what they can do for the fall.
Yeah, so I think with a short sample size, as you mentioned, you know, the Phoenix race was I thought was pretty good Phoenix race. Richmond was a very strategic race, which again, you know, obviously crew chief like yourself would totally be into it and understand it and love it. Regular fans, some probably would, others would maybe not so much, but it come down to the very last few laps that strategy played into it. Martinsville was not what we wanted to see, but we had a lot of factors at Martinsville that played into that. You know, we had all the weather. There was no rubber down on the racetrack. Couldn't really get there. Temperatures were well below what we've ever seen there. I think we were racing in 38 degrees at one point. All these factors come into play, and Martinsville is its own specific track that needs certain things as well. So we're going back. We're never satisfied, you know, unless we are 100%. And we're going back, and we've looked at all the data, and Goodyear's gone back. We're going to do a tire test, and we'll probably go back with a different look, but it won't be the same circumstances. So if in any other year we ran into the same thing with the temperatures and the track conditions and everything we had, it just, without putting rubber down on that concrete track, as you well know, it really put us in a tough spot. They had too much grip at the bottom, and there was no outside lane. It made it really difficult to pass. And so we're looking at some changes there, as well as a transaxle and the ratios that we have and the box that we're kind of in for economically and keeping the racing good everywhere else. We might have to go back and look at that as well. So there's a bunch of things that at Martinsville that we're looking at that will probably go back a little different when we head back. And I wouldn't expect anything less than a barn burner when we go back for the second time.
Yeah. You don't get two Martinsville races in a row. I mean, this next one, this next one, you probably need to batten down the hatches on that. You mentioned something about the gear ratios. You talked about the transaxle on that, and I know you guys are working on it. Brad, what's a fair timeline to work on something like that? You can't change them every week. You've got to work on it. How far out do you work? And now that we're starting to get these small samples, how far out do you work on those minor those details like that?
Well, the Martinsville one, I mean, we've got obviously the day after the race, we started looking at different options. Again, we're trying to keep the clusters. There's main gears, and then there's like drop gears. There's three of them that we have. And in order to get maybe what we need, because Martinsville is so unique, we may have to introduce, a different cluster of gears. And that's being looked at on how we have to do that. You can't do it overnight. It's not an easy, none of these things are really easy tasks, but they're tasks that are getting managed. So I would pretty much be sure we're going to have a little different package when we go back to Martinsville.
Yeah, definitely.
No doubt. Yeah, I think so. Okay, so Todd's beating you up about the short tracks. Well, he's not beating you up about the short tracks. He just asked about the short tracks. I want to talk about the intermediate tracks, because that, to me, historically has been a challenge. How do we make this thing work? When I look at the races we just had at Kansas, I look at Las Vegas at Auto Club, you guys have just got to be off the chains with the way the intermediate racing has been this year. This car has performed well on the intermediate tracks.
Yeah, I really enjoy those ones. It's been. I'm a fan too up there. It's been a great surprise. I mean, obviously we expected success at all the tracks. The road courses were probably more a no-brainer in the fact that a lot of these parts and pieces are being raced around the world on road courses. But to really see it just dialed in at these 1.5 miles, and again, a little bit of the bodies helping, and it's been great to witness, and I think it's only going to get better. So it's a great example of how the car is being is successful to this point. Teams are adapting, as you mentioned earlier. Just the parity out there. It's great to see, and we'll hopefully continue that throughout the season.
Yeah, definitely. You talked about it. We watched Kyle Larson bounce off the wall at least 4 times this weekend and still keep on racing, and no cut tires from that stuff. It's been impressive, and kudos to NASCAR and the teams, and really what we looked at in the off season. What I've been most impressed of from the outside, now that I'm an outsider looking in, is it seems like NASCAR and the industry has become very collaborative. If you looked at all the testing you did in the offseason, went to Charlotte, didn't really like the package, changed the aero package. You guys have done a phenomenal job of it seems like everybody working together and not against each other.
Yeah, and I think that's great to see. I mean, obviously everybody in this series, or in this in NASCAR, are the best in the business. And we really the way to get better is just to listen to everybody's input. We're not going to agree. You're never going to probably get 2 teams to agree with everything. But when you have a wide scope of how much information comes in, and you examine all of it, and there's always good and some bad in all of the information, work together with these teams, which we've been doing. I think the results are showing, and they'll continue to do that, because the collaboration, I agree, Todd, has never probably been better than it is today. And that's how we get better and get to exactly where we want to be. Exciting races every week.
Yeah, it's been phenomenal. One area that there's been a lot of attention on, Brad, and Todd and I, we've talked about it. We've had a pit crew coach on talking about it. Our pit stops, tires, wheels, the wheel assembly, the hub. We even had one that got stuck on with a cross thread situation this past weekend. How are you guys monitoring this? Are you addressing it? What's your take, Brad, on what's going on with wheels and tires this year?
Yeah, so absolutely, that's been a big conversation. Since Daytona, we put a group together from the teams, again talking about our collaboration. We had a wheel group put together from the team side and from the R&D side. That was the day after Daytona. We've been working on it ever since, making some slight adjustments, looking at what the problems are, and keeping it into check. We've had eight wheels come off, which is 8 more than we ever want. But there's been 10,000 successful wheel changes to this point in the season. So you're at about a 0.8%. Yeah. It's really low percentages, but we're striving for zero. We don't ever want to see it. It's a lot of the teams learning how to do it. Mm-hmm. It's not as easy as it was. Every form of motorsports has a slightly different view of it, but you got one shot and you got one lug nut. If that lug nut's not on there and that car leaves the box, we know what the end result is, unfortunately. So it's a learning curve. We're trying to help it. We've got some test samples out with some teams currently that we're doing some tests on with slightly different drive pins, but we're talking very minor adjustments. It's just a matter of getting everything gelled together, and all these little things have to work right. But it looks like a big problem, which we look at it as it is. The percentage is very low, but we're working on getting that down to zero.
Yeah, definitely 0.08%. That's a pretty low number, but I love that your strive for zero is the right number there. As we've watched the season go on, and I know that the aerodynamics are driven a lot on the undercar side of this car. It seems like, at least from what we see with the diffuser in the back, there's been a lot of cars that, I won't say a lot, but there's been multiple cars per weekend that have multiple failures in inspection, which has honestly made the racing better. It's made it easier for us to announce because you've got people coming from the back. It's been good for that. What do you attribute that to? Is it all underbody stuff, or is it a little bit of everything that you see the failures for?
No, it's funny enough, Todd, it's been a little bit of everything. It's almost like it was. I mean, and again, for the first handful of races, it was new, right? So people weren't sure how far they can go. We were lining our equipment up with the shops, and so there was a little bit of that. Lately, there's been more. It's funny enough, there's been more body, and the second would be underbody. And we brought 6 cars back to the tunnel this week. We brought 6 back at Talladega. We're also running them across all our scanning at the R&D center. So they're actually getting the wind tunnel, and then they're coming here and we're checking the scanning. So we keep trying to dial it in, and it's just a matter of all of us getting aligned. Now, whether the teams will always try to push it that little bit on the body and just miss it. And, there's some rumblings that the temperatures change it slightly, but it's like pit road speed. I mean, you get 4.999, and how much do the teams want to take of it? Pretty much all of it. So it's the same as it was. And I would like to think it'll get, and I say better from my end, it might not be better from your end, but I would think it would get easier and they'd go through at a higher percentage. But maybe that's just wishful thinking, and maybe this is what we've got, and we just got to keep everybody in check. And when the race starts, they're all on an even playing field.
I would say from the former crew chief standpoint, the tolerance may be plus or minus 150, but the Windows plus is 10th on either end of that, I'm sure. So
there you go. Yeah.
that's what we work in. You mentioned in there that you did bring 6 cars back to go to the tunnel. Are you taking cars to wind tunnel, and what will you get out of that?
Yeah, we took 6 at Talladega, and we took 6 more this last weekend. And it's just to make sure everything's where we think it's going to be. That all the OEMs are in the same box as what we started. and for future changes as well. So it's really just putting some data in the bank. We don't expect to see anything drastically different than what we've seen at Talladega, and that was good. And as well, we also wanted the opportunity to perfect this under wing scanning, which we're still doing as well. So it's really just pulling a lot of data. I don't think we're going to see anything out of the box on it, and again, just to make sure that everybody's in the box from the OEM side, and just for the manufacturers, making sure that everything's working equally for everybody, so we can keep the parity, for all three manufacturers.
Brad, one other thing, and this is the final one that I have for you here today. We went from practice and qualifying 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, 3 days to nothing during the pandemic, to the format that we have now, 15 or 20 minutes right into qualifying. From NASCAR's, from your perspective, how is that going?
I think it's going well. I mean, I wish I had more time to watch some of the programs afterwards. I've had a chance to watch a few, but it's just the weeks are so short with what we got going on. But I believe it's working really well. I think it's more interesting for the fans. I think what we used to have for practice, everyone thought that was the norm. That's what we had to have. And obviously when COVID come along, it certainly changed our thinking on how much practice is required. So I like it. I think it's good. I think it's good for the racing. I really believe it's good for the racing, and too much time maybe might hurt the product. And so they have enough time to do their adjustments. We qualify and we get out and get after it for on Sunday. And I think I like it myself.
I can tell you from the radio perspective, and I'll just flatly say this, and I probably can say the same for TV. What we're able to do in that 2 hour window is spectacular for our fans. And I know TV's there interviewing the same drivers we are. The access that gives us, the storytelling that gives us to do. I know you said you didn't get a chance to watch many of the programs or listen to many of the programs. Man, from our perspective, this has been gold. I was not on the practice show at Kansas, and I was disappointed I wasn't on the practice show in Kansas, because it's been fun to do, fun to cover. And from a programming perspective, it's been great. It really has been. So, and Todd was nodding his head when you said you practice too much. We might dial some things in or out. He was in agreement with you on that. Crew chief guy.
Yeah, it's definitely been good to see, and forces the teams to race a little bit harder in the shop. We did that through COVID, and understanding how your simulators, your simulation, and your notebooks work, and the guys not having notebooks has made it pretty interesting this year. But I think you guys have done a great job with that. I think it's been a very, that 2 hours is phenomenal, because it's got practice, it's got interviews, it's got qualifying, there's suspense, we've seen cars spinning out in practice, right? So there's a lot of storylines there that it's done a great job.
Really, truly has. That's for sure. Brad, we know you're very busy. We really appreciate you taking some time out here to chat with us on Crew Call. I know our fans love to hear from you and kind of get a state of where we're at here midway through the regular season. Always enjoy chatting with you at the garage. Appreciate you joining us here today on Crew Call.
Thanks for having me, gentlemen, and have a great day.
There we go. That is Brad Moran, the managing series director for the Cup Series, joining us here on Crew Call, presented by Flow Racing. Stay with us. More in just a moment. Welcome back to Crew Call. We are having a ball. So glad you joined us here on the Motor Racing Network. And great visit with Brad Moran. Brad's a good guy. I always love talking to him in the garage. We got a little background on him up in Canada. But, boy, I can't imagine getting thrown into the fire, but it looks like he's managing it, and the product we're seeing has been good. So the end result has been pretty solid. Yeah,
it has. And you great insight there into the challenges and some of the topics that we've talked about, whether it be wheels, whether it be supplies. I think good answers and good feedback of what's going on with the industry. Really cool to see the collaboration between the teams and NASCAR. It's not separate. They're working to make the product better, and everybody's doing a good job of it. Even the wind tunnel conversation he had there, and I wanted to pick a little deeper into that because he mentioned it, but just trying to make sure that the box that everybody's in is similar, so that we can keep this racing the way it is. And not that they're going to take anything away from anybody, but just trying to understand where everybody's at. And I think it's a it's done a really good job. There were some things in the offseason that they actually had to modify
Sure.
because we changed from a high spoiler, a tall spoiler, high downforce package to the low downforce, and that kind of changed how each of the different manufacturers' cars worked. So they had to do a little bit of tweaking there. So they're keeping their finger on it to understand what's going on to make sure we've got this great racing product that we've had all along.
The wheel stuff fascinates me. Obviously, it's been a hot topic. We talk about it seemingly all the time, and it's interesting that right after Daytona, they've started to work on this with collaboration again. That's the word with the team. The other one that kind of stands out to me, and it was a one-race deal, but I had multiple crew chiefs tell me, we have no business shifting at Martinsville.
Yep.
And boom. Sounds like they're working on it. That's it. And you're going to have things. You're going to have things that you missed it by that much. Well, in NASCAR Cup Series racing, missing it by that much is a big margin.
Yes.
So it's good. Good stuff.
In hindsight, looking at it, and I thought Brad brought up the 2 points there about Martinsville. It's not like we've figured out that this car just can't race short tracks. We made a couple errors in the situation that we had to race at. One, I don't care what tire Goodyear brings to the racetrack. When it's 38 degrees outside, rubber does not stick to concrete. It just doesn't happen. And we've seen that in the past. We've had some kind of ho-hum Martinsville races in the spring because the track doesn't take rubber.
Right.
When that track takes rubber, the bottom goes away, then the place gets wider. A lot of great things happen as it gets rubber down. We don't want to lay too much because we don't want to ball it up and make the upper lane dirty, but there's kind of a fine line there. So there's a temperature challenge that they created with this being a night race in April. And the shifting piece. When you look back at it, we reduced the rear gear by probably like 8 or 9% from what we'd raced in the past.
Yeah.
Because of trying to keep within a specified set of gears to try to keep costs down. And they tried it. And that's one of the things I think NASCAR's done a great job of is they'll try things. If it doesn't work, they'll fix them.
Yeah.
And here's one. We tried to do it with what we had, and he comes out saying, we may need to make a gear change. We may need to make a cluster change or something to make the overall ratio work. When we reduced it by that 8 or 9%, you force the guys to have to shift. If they get the gear back up to where it was before or maybe just a fuzz higher, then we'll take the shifting away. Yeah. And we get a little rubber down, and we'll have Martinsville right back.
And that's the penultimate race, the next to last race. And like I said, I don't recall going to 2 races at Martinsville. So buy your tickets, I'm sure, because it's going to be fun. That is for sure. Always good to hang out. Appreciate again the time we got to spend together. Everything from the NASCAR racing to the Raising Cane's Chicken joint across the parking lot. We all broke bread together. It was fun to hang out, and then always good to hang out here on Crew Call.
Yeah, I really enjoy the opportunity to get to racetrack with you guys.
We have a good time.
That was number 3 of 7, and looking forward to the rest of them.
There we go. Sounds good. He is Todd Gordon. I am Steve Post, and we appreciate you joining us here on Crew Call. We appreciate Brad Moran joining us as well. This has been Crew Call, presented by Flow Racing, the new home of NASCAR roots. You can subscribe today at www.flowracing.com.